Shalom, welcome to lesson 8. In this lesson, we'll take a look at Qal Imperfect Conjugation, the past narrative conjugation, the Qal Imperfect Conjugation of Haya, and a very special verb, V'yehi. For the Qal Imperfect Conjugation, the perfect and imperfect were introduced in previous lesson as the main conjugations in Biblical Hebrew. The perfect was described as a perfective aspect, and a paradigm was given. The imperfect conjugation was described as especially imperfective aspect. In most instances, an English present or future verb will be used to translate the imperfect. The imperfect is the main conjugation built on a prefix pattern. However, there are other conjugations such as the imperative and adjective that are also based on a prefix pattern. Now let's take a look at a table of the Qal imperfect. For the third person masculine, he will attend is expressed in Hebrew like this. So instead of reading the words one by one, I'll analyze what the prefixes do to the verbs. For the third person masculine, you can see that a hearing yod is added to the start of the word. Because Hebrew is read from right to left, the prefix hearing yod is added to the start of the word to indicate that it's in the imperfect tense, or if you like, the future tense. For the third person feminine singular, she will attend. A tav with a hearing pronounced as a T is added to the start of the word. For the second person masculine singular, a tav with a hearing pronounced as a T is also added to the start of the verb. For the second person feminine singular, there is a prefix and a suffix at the end of the word. So a tav with a hearing pronounced as T is added to the beginning of the verb, followed by the yod at the end of the verb. For the first person common singular, an aleph is added to the start of the verb. Let's take a look at plural verbs. For the third person masculine plural, a yod as well as a vav is added to the verb. So the way I memorize this is, since there's a prefix and a suffix, I will use Latin letter Y to represent yod and U to represent U. So YU represents the third person masculine plural for me, and it stands for they will do something. For the third person feminine plural, you can see that there is a tav with a hearing at the beginning of the verb, followed by a na at the end. So I remember this as Tina. So for the second person masculine plural, I remember this prefix and suffix combination as a tu, because this is a tav with a hearing, it's pronounced as T, and this is a U. So TU is much easier to remember for this combination for the second person masculine plural. For the second person feminine plural, I also remember it as Tina, Tina for the prefix and suffix combination. For the first person common plural, meaning we will do something, the letter nun with a hearing is added to the front of the verb. Let's take a look at the past narrative conjugation. Languages typically use a past tense or a perfective aspect verb form for narrating past events. For instance, in English, it's called simple past. Some languages, however, may devote a particular verb form entirely to literally narrative. For example, in French, it's the passé simple. In Biblical Hebrew, an archaic past tense verb predominates and is mostly restricted to past narrative passages. So in this example, Vayochal Vayeshete Vayakam Vayelek. He ate, he drank, he rose, he went. The narrative past conjugation, like the imperfect, is built on the prefix pattern by adding a vav in front. In the majority of cases, the only distinguishing feature between these two conjugations is that past narrative form almost always has a uniquely vocalized vav conjunction prefix. The vav with a patah and a dagash, like we see here, and here, and here, and here. Forms without the vav with a patah and a dagash exist primarily in poetic texts. For these two examples, he will visit in the imperfect tense. It's ye called. And for he visited in the past tense, it's vayif called. Now let's take a look at the Qal imperfect conjugation of haya. The verb haya, meaning be, is both frequent and irregular. Here's a paradigm table of the Qal imperfect conjugation of the verb. So instead of reading everything for you, I'll just analyze what's going on here. Just like the table before, a yod is added to the start of the verb in the third person masculine singular. For the third person feminine singular, a taf with a hirik, pronounced as T, is added. For the second person masculine singular, a taf with a hirik is also added. It's pronounced as a T also. So for the second person feminine singular, a taf with a hirik as well as a yod is added to the back. So because the hey is a special character, it's a guttural, whenever there's a prefix added in front, there's no change, but if there's a suffix added behind, it will transform the character into something else. In this case, since hey is at the back here, when another character is added to that, like a yod, instead of displaying three yods, it displays only two yods in this form like so. For the first person common singular, an aleph is added to the start of the verb. For the third person masculine plural, we can see that uh, YU is added to the front of the back. Y stands for yod, U stands for U. For the third person feminine plural, we can see that Tina is also added, T and then Na, and because whenever a suffix is added to the back to next to a hey, the hey will become a yod, so it becomes this form. Next, let's take a look at the second person masculine plural. So for this form, TU is in the prefix and the suffix combination. T stands for half with a hearing, and U is I use it to remember the U. So for the second person feminine plural, the Tina combination is used, T at the front and Na at the back. For the first person common plural, a noun character is added to the front with a hearing. It's pronounced as ni. Next, let's take a look at the very special verb called Vyehi. Vyehi is the third person masculine singular past narrative form of Haya and is extremely frequent. There are two distinctive functions of this form in narrative. Often it functions just like other narrative forms with the meaning of was, become, or come, as in these two examples. Adonai was with Joseph and he became a successful man from Genesis 39:2. Vayehi Adonai et Yosef Vayehi Ish Batz Li'ah. And in the second example, the word of Yahweh came literally was to Samuel from 1 Samuel 15:10. Vayehi Devar Adonai El Shamuel. Just as frequently, however, the form introduces a circumstantial clause in a narrative. Often the clause opens or closes the narrative episode. In these two examples, and then at about that time, literally, and it was at that time, and Abimelech said from Genesis 21:22. So in Hebrew, it's rendered as Vayehi ba'et hahi vayomer Avimelech. And in the second example, now there was a certain man from Ramathaim, from 1 Samuel 1:1. Vayehi ish ehad min haramathaim. Finally, let's take a look at some useful vocabulary. The first word on the left is stone. In Hebrew, it's pronounced as even. The second word is a conditional if. It's pronounced in Hebrew as im. The third word is and he said. In Hebrew, it's pronounced as vayomer. The fourth word is sin or sin offering. It's pronounced in Hebrew as hatat. Hatat. The next word is Jonathan. It's pronounced in Hebrew as Yehunatan. The next word is a name called Isaac. It's pronounced in Hebrew as Ishak. Ishak. The next word is glory, honor, or wealth. It's pronounced in Hebrew as kavod. Kavod. The next word means right. It's pronounced in Hebrew as katav. Katav. The next word on the right, the first word on the top of the right hand side is judgment, justice, or custom. It's pronounced in Hebrew as mitzpat. Mitzpat. The next word is scroll, document, or book. It's pronounced in Hebrew as sefer. Sefer. The next word is forever or antiquity. It's pronounced in Hebrew as olam. Olam. The next word is tree or wood. It's pronounced in Hebrew as eitz. Eitz. The next word is righteousness. It's pronounced in Hebrew as Sadik. Sadik. The next word is a name, Saul. It's pronounced in Hebrew as Shaul. Shaul. The next word is also a name, is Samuel. It's pronounced in Hebrew as Shemuel. Shemuel. The next word is two. So the masculine form is pronounced as Shenaim. The feminine form is pronounced as Shetaim. Shalom, and thank you for watching this. May you be blessed in the learning of God's language. Thank you.